There is this massive myth that someday, in some way, at some point in time, you're going to finally feel ready to do the thing you're afraid to do. Today, we're going to unpack that myth and tell you what you need to do instead.
And to that end, you are buying a freaking lie that readiness happens on its own time, at its own pace. Your readiness is actually a decision away, and we're so sick of hearing otherwise. Join us in this episode to learn why.
Hey, everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Emilia. Welcome to episode 481, Why Waiting to Feel Ready is Costing You Your Life. We are here to spitball some truths. We are not here to placate. And one of the biggest challenges that Bianca and I see behind the scenes working with people in our private practice is the fact that this whole readiness wave is something that is costing people's lives. So join us for today's episodes, the stories, what we actually see on the ground level that holds so many people back from the life that they truly want. Bianca, let's hear the story that you have for this one. I'm very curious about how that's going to help our listeners truly understand how important what we're saying here really is. Talk to me. What do you got?
Talk to me, Goose. I've actually never even seen that movie. Anyways, so
it's a must.
As all good stories begin, I was with a client. Dun, dun, dun. And she is a client that is in her mid-50s. We started working together. I want to say it was in March. And when we first started working together, she had massive trust issues. Obviously, not something that you and I are new to, especially someone coming into therapy. It's a very scary, intimidating, daunting experience. And she has a history of not having really good therapists. She had one good therapist, but they only focused on one major issue in her life. They never got to any of the other challenges. And based on that, and then based on her history of trauma, she sincerely had this belief that change wasn't possible for her. Nothing was ever going to happen for her. She was doomed for all eternity to suffer. So the last thing I wanted to do was come in guns a-blazing saying, hey, everything is possible for you. This is just limiting beliefs. We're going to change everything. That's the worst thing that you can do. So I was straight up with her and I said, listen, you're not going to trust me. That's okay. You're not supposed to. Actually, I don't want you to trust me. I want to earn your trust over time. Nice. And now here we are. Almost a year later, she's like, you're never getting rid of me. Like, just amazing, right? Beautiful.
That's great.
Trusts me inherently now. We have a wonderful relationship. She's doing all of these things. She's finally taking these steps to change her life, but it's going at a slower rate than she would like due to the amount of pain that she's in. And we've all felt that.
We've been there.
It's like we finally go to the gym. We finally, start whatever that thing is. We start the diet. We start the habit. And it's like, okay, I'm doing it. Where's my change?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So she and I had a session the other day and we were talking about her job. And she's the VP of a nonprofit organization, and she has a history of abuse in the workplace at other places that she was in. The stories that she has told me, it's like, I don't know how your boss isn't in prison. Just wild stuff that happened at that job. Wow. So she has a massive history of abuse. All she knows is abuse. She's getting abused again in this job. Not in the same way, but very much taken advantage of, undervalued, not paid what she should be getting paid. And she recently got demoted. and got a salary cut.
Wow.
And she's like, I'm never leaving here. I can't leave here. There's nowhere else for me to go. Nothing is possible for me. So I'm calling on our past experiences and I'm like, hey, remember how it took all this time for you to trust me? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, you trust me now, right? And she's like, yeah.
Well, now that you ask.
Why? Where are we going with this?
Mm-hmm.
I had her looking at LinkedIn. I had her looking at all of these different job platforms just to gather evidence for herself that she's more capable, so on and so forth, right? But we have this session the other day and she's like, Bianca, you and I both know I'm never leaving this job. And I was like, why?
Wow.
And she's like, because I don't feel ready. Shouldn't I feel ready to leave? They're taking advantage of me. I've experienced nothing but abuse. Shouldn't I'm waiting to feel ready. I don't feel ready. And I told her, and this is the premise of this conversation of what we are going to have today.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're waiting for a feeling to come that's never actually going to come. Because your brain has spent its entire life optimizing to keep you safe from the abuse that you've suffered.
Mm-hmm.
You are never going to feel ready.
No.
We need to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Emilia, where does that come from? From your background, from your experience, from all of the data and the research that you've gathered, why are we so preoccupied with feeling ready to make change? Where does that come from?
At the end of the day, we're so preoccupied with that narrative because ultimately that preoccupation with that narrative allows us to buy time in when we are shifting, slowly boiling into our deepest fear states. Because when we even think about doing something different than what we're doing, our whole central nervous system, the neurochemistry that we have, our endocrine system, like it's all shifting. And that quote unquote readiness that I refer to as the cover story of a scared nervous system is so easy to cling on to like a raft than to really acknowledge what's going on, quite frankly, underneath all of what is under that raft, which is the fear that is there, the delay that one person is taking single-handedly in what is actually possible for them, right? A lot of people have a very hard time taking ownership in their own actionable change making in their world. And they'd rather, as a result of their abuse and experiences, maintain the certainty in what is uncomfortable, unfair, and maybe even abusive than they would actually acknowledging the ownership and the capabilities that they have to contract change as a result of their decision making. And so readiness really is not this quote unquote feeling that you get, and that preoccupation with that feeling is just bypassing a critical decision that is going to feel literally shocking to your nervous system. And so of course, at an unconscious level, your unconscious mind and everything that's there is trying to self-preserve, even though it's counterintuitive when you look at it objectively, rationally speaking. It's trying to preserve what is quote unquote known. Even if, this is where that saying comes in, the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't, quote unquote, because of the fact that even though it's known abuse, it's known exploitation, it's known uncertainty in this job or whatever, that is easier to wrap our heads around, our nervous system around, because it's familiar than it is to actually make a quote unquote cold, straight decision and then be willing to exercise your right into making change happen for your nervous system. And so your nervous system is self-protecting and self-preserving without your rational conscious mind. And that's a traumatic pattern that many people engage within without being mindfully conscious of it.
Do you think it boils down to a lack of self-trust?
Absolutely.
That they don't feel that self-trust, and the readiness is what they're actually looking for, is that feeling of, I know in my core I'm making the right decision.
100%. A lot of people will even name it as like my intuition. And when you've been through some severe trauma, your intuition is essentially, it's like a GPS loaded up with data that's going to send you off a cliff or send you right into exactly what you've experienced just because of the way in which your dopaminergic systems have been oriented. And so absolutely, that quote unquote feeling is we're looking for something that doesn't exist because it hasn't been cultivated. And so it's one of the biggest reasons what I will do with clients is make sure that even though you quote unquote don't have that feeling, do it anyways, which is why I'm so proud and celebrating and excited for her to have you in her life, because not only are you a safe person, but you also can understand the emotional, psychological thrashing essentially that happens under the current in your own nervous system, the dysregulation that comes when you even contemplate what making a decision that will evoke change, what that will be like. And so she's really lucky to have you to help her do it anyways, because that's one of the classic DBT techniques of do the opposite of what your nervous system is saying.
Opposite action.
So huge. Yeah. Opposite action. It will bring new results. So if you want those results and you want that feeling, it's not just going to arrive like it's going to wash up on the shore. And that waiting, this is what pisses me off the most and gets me most upset. Seriously, because I see it so much.
Fired up.
We've talked about this in past episodes. Like when we look at it in a business context, it's how much productivity is lost. When we look at it like on an environmental standpoint, it's how much we're not really activating our own unique human potential to help save this climate. Like there's so many different areas when we're just waiting in the wings of our own lives. Like we're really not showing ourselves proof of how capable, how worthy, how deserving we are in whatever that realm of life that decision will show you as a result of you actually stepping to taking action. Action is so freaking powerful because it literally gives you alternative evidence to what your belief systems and the narratives of your own nervous systems have to date. And that's why it's so powerful. And waiting is costing you your life.
It's not opposite action just for opposite action's sake. It's teaching your brain and teaching your body that you are capable of engaging in a behavior, and that what you have learned to be your quote unquote instinct is actually a trauma response. So with this client, her initial quote unquote instinct was, I'm not capable, fawn, avoid, submit, reside. Don't make waves, don't say anything, just take it on the chin. And what I'm actively having her do in small ways that actually feel safe to her nervous system, because this is why I said it's not just taking opposite action for opposite action's sake. It's
Definitely
teaching yourself that you are capable of engaging in a new behavior that feels unfamiliar.
Absolutely.
And doing it in a safe way to where you can gather evidence of the opposite. So like, oh, I am capable of this. So what I had her do was actually go into Indeed, and I said, okay, every part of you is going to want to tell you that you're not capable and that you are not competent. Let's put that to the side, okay? We know it's going to happen. That's okay. We're not going to deny it. We're just going to acknowledge that it is going to happen. And is there another part of you that comes up that will allow you to see that you actually are capable of some of these positions? So we plugged in her position title. We went through Indeed. And at first she was super resistant. She's like, I can't do this. I'm like, I know everything in you is going to tell you you're not qualified for any of these jobs. You're not qualified.
Classic. Yeah.
And then we spent the next 30 minutes and she was like, oh my God, I have all of these qualifications. She's like, I've done all of this. I don't necessarily have the degrees, but I've been in this industry for 20 years. I have the experience of this.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's all we're going to do. I'm not going to have you apply. I'm not going to have you change anything. I just want you gathering data.
Yeah.
It's little micro actions like that then build your self-trust, which then allow you to believe that you are ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. And in that moment, because she felt safe with me, she made the decision to try. And this is why a good therapist is so important, because a good therapist is going to help you to feel safe and then to try and safe enough to fail and knowing that there's no negative repercussions.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone earlier this week about this topic, exactly how important it is to have someone in your corner. This was also the context of therapists, and how important it truly is to have a therapist that is, and again, everyone goes to therapy for different reasons. However, the context of this conversation was far more about how important it is to have actual meaningful change and not just sit on a conversation and express. And now I'm not knocking that. I think that is actually really important, because literally talk therapy can change lives when you've been in a world of constantly silencing yourself. I know that. I've literally benefited from that. And knowing what modality your therapist or the therapist that you're going towards works in is extremely important. This was a stance in that conversation that I was taking, because
and their
of
treatment plan.
100% of what we believe and what we do at Evolve, because at the end of the day, if that's what someone needs when going into a therapeutic setting, you actually have a clear defined goal of what you want or what you need, or what the case is that you're going, or what brings you to therapy, right? Or what brings you to coaching. What is that treatment plan or goal plan to be able to make meaningful progress? Because at the end of the day, if there isn't meaningful progress, what are you doing? What are you doing? And this person was asking me, it's kind of just, it blows my mind how so many people will sit in a setting and not have any meaningful change. And I said, at the end of the day, that doesn't have to be the case for so many people. And yet, when they don't have a therapist that is focused on meaningful change, and there's that agreement between therapist and client that we want to have meaningful change happen, it doesn't allow conversations like these that are critical to build evidence and to build that safety and that trust to actually just show to yourself that you are capable of making a decision that will then bring meaningful change. That is incredibly important. And so just, when we talk about the subject, I am reminded how few people have someone in their corner who are safe enough to remind them how capable of making a decision they actually are on their own accord. And
Can
that
you
alone.
Can you dive into the 3 things that you and I talked about yesterday that someone needs in order to feel ready to make change?
You're going to have to remind me of the 3 things. We talked about a lot yesterday.
You said that there's 3 things that a child needs in order to have a stable life and to feel good. Good enough as a human, but this is also fundamental as adults too, because so few of us ever got this in childhood.
Okay.
What do people need from themselves and others to be able to quote unquote feel ready, aka take action to change?
Yeah. One of the thanks for framing that differently. I'm like, my brain's like,
you're like, what?
Files on files on files of all the things. Okay. So one of the biggest things why we struggle to make decisions is because, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in this episode, our sense of self, and we did a couple of episodes on this on self-belief, which is so critical when it comes to the decision-making process. So please go back and listen to part 1 or part 2, both of them even, to make sure that you have an understanding of what that is and how that ties into the context of what I'm about to say. And when we are looking for, or we're trying to build that quote unquote readiness, ultimately we're trying to build a sufficient case within our own internal mindset that we are capable of handling what comes after a change, or what, in other words, what happens after a decision. And when we are not given, or we are not consistently receiving 3 components that I'm going to break down. Number 1, unconditional love. Number 2, secure attachment. And number 3, praise for one's own effort, not the results that they have when they're younger and growing up and growing through life. And instead you have criticism, you have like a ton of high pressure on what you do, how you do it, and everything on the in-between. And there's literally never realistic expectations. And there's unwinnable games that you are brought up in a family system. You literally cannot build self-esteem. The person looking back in the mirror when you're young doesn't say to him or herself, I am so capable of making decisions, and I'm capable of handling what happens after I make a decision. So if you don't have high levels of self-esteem, likely that's translating to you making your nervous system is essentially saying, I can't make decisions for myself. Therefore, I'm waiting for this sense of readiness to come to me. And that's the thing. It never comes to you. It's just this narrative that scared people dilute to themselves, because scared people are ultimately the people who have not developed and cultivated a strong sense of self, a strong sense of self-esteem, which, by the way, self-esteem and self-efficacy are directly connected into making a decision of change. And thereby, you are actually the captain, the controller, the commander of your life, and you can make positive change in your life. So it's a critical component when it comes to the decision-making process.
Feeling ready is not about a feeling coming to you. It's about having help and guidance to finally make a decision. For the majority of people, you're not going to do this on your own accord. So my final takeaway, we say this in every episode because it's the truth. Get a good therapist. Get a really good trauma-certified coach. Get someone in your corner who's going to be able to help you to finally develop the self-trust that you're looking for to make decisions. I've had multiple clients this week, and this isn't to toot my own horn. This is to give reverence to these clients. I've had multiple clients this week say something along the lines of, my life is so wildly different because of this therapy.
Nice.
You're not like other therapists I've had where it's either all about you, or you're forcing ideas, or it's shitty advice. You're actually like, you're giving a space for me to be me and to grow through that. Multiple clients have said that this week. It was beautiful. It was so amazing.
Yeah.
That's what good therapy will do. Everybody needs a therapist. Everybody. Because we all are human. We all have a brain. And 99.9% of us were not taught how to use it effectively. So that is my final takeaway. My episode suggestion, 453, what it really feels like with high quality therapy.
Yeah, and I would wager that's not good therapy. That's exceptional therapy. That is elite therapy, and there are different levels of therapy. And here at Evolve, we do nothing but that, and I'm really proud of that. And Bianca, I'm so happy that that is their natural, authentic experience with you. So good on you, and that's a testament to how you choose to show up every single day, and what, most importantly, what you do and don't do behind the scenes, the trade-offs that you make in order to be able to hold such a space. So in closing, my episode suggestion was also that. So please go over to those. And like I said, if you haven't listened to the self-belief episodes, it's a 2-part series. Please go listen to those, and please reach out. You know, at the end of the day, Evolve is here and has so many opportunities for individuals who are trying to build higher levels of self-esteem. There is no limit to that, right? So if you're struggling with this, you're not alone. We have been there. We have proven systems to help clients just like you get out from underneath that waiting back in the backseat of your life or this readiness feeling to appear. I mean, think about that client, right? Like she will just continue to be stuck and miserable in her life, and how she has to cope through that is a whole nother story. But now she actually has the trust and the decision making rooted into something that's real, that's true, and evidence, right? So it's an evidence-based practice that we hold, and it's so freaking powerful to make meaningful change. So reach out to us on that. Additionally, if you want to jump into the Evolve community, we have events, free events coming up. We have Out of the Mud next Wednesday when you're listening to this episode and it's dropping. And it's the last Wednesday of every single month. So we hope to join or see you in that. And as always, thank you for your interest in the holistic science of mental health and wellness. We cannot wait to have you back for our next episode. And we want to hear how this episode registered for you, what resonated. So drop a comment down below. We want to hear from you. All right, Evolvers, keep evolving, keep doing your thing, and celebrating this client. Bye.